Alex, Mike Sturley, coming home. Welcome home. Coming home. Welcome home. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you very much. In 2011, the Lane Council of Government's Senior and Disability Services Division developed a comprehensive analysis of living conditions for older adults in the country. They found that of 67,000 seniors in Lane County, 30% of them lived with a housing cost burden. That means more than 20,000, all 60 years and older, do not have enough savings to live off of for 6 months, or that they live on less than $903 per month. This is below the national poverty level. For them, housing affordability is a major concern. The SNDS found that there is a large need for more affordable housing alternatives in Lane County for older adults. These people are independent, desiring a degree of freedom that allows them to take care of their own homes and utilities, and do not require help for everyday tasks. It is recommended by the SNDS that integrated planning processes are developed to coordinate with organizations within their community to meet the needs of seniors with financial difficulties. They also emphasize the need for health, safety, security, and a sense of well-being. It is estimated that 59% of older adults in Lane County live alone, and most fall within the 60 to 70-year-old age group. Many of these do not have someone to readily contact in case of an emergency, or feel even safe in their own homes or neighborhoods. The purpose of this project is to design a community specifically tailored for these older adults in this age group who live alone and struggle with the ability to live in a home of their own. The congregation of the Valley River Assembly of God Church in Eugene, Oregon recognizes the needs of those within their community and continuously look for ways to provide assistance in some way. They take part in local programs such as the Egan Warming Center and the St. Vincent de Paul Homeless Family Placement Program. They would like to see their own property utilized even more. One of these ways is by providing the elderly with a residential setting at a relatively low cost. They would also like to see their property as a community gathering place, providing an open space for everyone in the area. And to reach out to even more people, the church would like to see a 24-hour daycare service set up as well, which would provide parents with a morning to shop or a night on the town. During busy times of the year, residents of the adult community would have the option of lending a hand as well, providing a wealth of experience taking care of children. The property of the church sits nestled between Eugene's Delta Highway and the Cal Young neighborhood. Currently, the property belongs to the Assembly of God, consists of 3 land parcels, making a total of 6.41 acres, all zoned residential industrial. The church itself building sits on the westernmost parcel, which is also the largest. The church leaders have been slowly working towards improving site conditions over the past several years. In 2006, they constructed a new main sanctuary to facilitate their growing congestion, and in 2008, they provided their parking lot and drainage. They have also taken steps to implement a community for older adults by working with a local architecture firm. As of right now, the future of the site is not set in stone, as the church continues to move towards an unclear goal geared specifically to providing light into a city full of need. The primary site for this project consists of a very flat, open grassy field. In the winter, it pools with water and becomes a haven for migrating birds. Along its northern border, a 45-degree slope drops down 2 to 4 feet to the sidewalk along Robin Hood Avenue. Also, the property consists of a place of worship, parking for more than 90 vehicles, and a volleyball court and baseball diamond that see little use even in the summer. Currently, primary access into the building is located on both the eastern and western sides, but also includes several smaller entries as well. It is possible for a vehicle to enter the field from the north through a break in the sidewalk along Robin Hood Avenue, as well as through an extension of the church property to the southeast. The surrounding area has seen a great deal of modification over the years. In the 19th century, the Delta ponds were riparian forest, but were also rich with large abundance of gravel, which in the 60s were used to produce the Delta Highway alongside this area. It was not until the turn of the century that any vast improvements to the area were implemented. Local nonprofit groups invested their time and energy into removing from the area invasive plant species and improving walking conditions. It is now a major draw of visitors into the area and is almost directly across the highway from the church. Between the church and the North Delta Highway sits the Delta Ponds Bridge. This project was introduced to provide a safer alternative to the Goodpasture Road overpass 1/2 mile to the north. The Delta Ponds Bridge is reserved specifically for pedestrians and is centrally located within the Cal Young neighborhood, connecting to Robin Hood Avenue, and sits along the property easement of the Valley River Assembly of God. This is a major access point for pedestrians in and out of the Cal Young area. Naturally, the church is highly enthusiastic about its presence here, as it means an increased foot traffic nearby. Though the highway abutting the church to the west is about 15 feet lower in elevation than the parking lot of the church, the inclination of the highway creates a great deal of road noise into the church area, but does not cause a large problem for the rest of the property. What I mean to say is, there's a great deal of noise in this area of this property, but it does not carry on much past the church building itself. Homes making up the area to the north and to the east of the church land would like to consider in this design their needs, because changes to this property are likely to affect their lives as well. To the south of the church sits a large piece of property of mostly open field owned by Gein Irrigation. Though the Gein land is currently zoned industrial, the city would like to eventually rezone it residential. Barring a growth in the economy, it could be expected that Gein would likely sell this land for development, which would in turn effectively surround the church with homes. The primary mission of this project is to establish a safe and energetic housing community where older adults could connect with residents in the surrounding neighborhood. Secondary and tertiary missions will focus on a central community area and church programming. Though the first two missions are in line with the churches, the third mission is different in that it incorporates more programming than the church's original request. With considerations of these three missions, of neighborhood, community hub, and church programming, added to the current land parcel segmentation of the church, and expected residential development to the south, brings about the division of the property into the following proposed site parcels. Each maintaining their own separate functions, transitions between them offer a mixed array of uses between adjacent sections. For example, though the neighborhood has its own purpose, this is it right here, as a home for older adults, it also borrows open space from the park for scenery and local activity. The park is of course a central gathering area for the surrounding community. And the church site remains a separate entity and yet borders the park as a subtle invitation for visitors to join the congregation. The church and the park sections are designed to lean towards public use, while the neighborhood is more private for those who live there. It is meant to be a relatively enclosed and separate community. It is also the primary focus of my design. My second goal is to foster within the entire community cohesion and belonging, connecting people with their neighbors and enriching affection for one another. Lastly, I wish to instill a sense of safety for all sites by creating spaces that are, to a large amount, visually exposed throughout the whole entire area. Those who live in the property are the primary benefactors of this design that I'm presenting today. It is for their own sake that this property takes its form, and they should feel as comfortable as possible with their surroundings. However, due to its relatively small size, the site will need to facilitate hide and reveal techniques as well to suggest the site is larger than it really is. The purpose of the Welcome Home project is to facilitate all these projects to create a possible scenario for what could be done with property belonging to the Valley River Assembly of God. Though it is primarily designed to be a comfortable environment for older adults, parts of that also extends out into the rest of the church and surrounding community through various means. To better facilitate activities for primarily the church, a number of new features have been incorporated into the design. These features include a play area, a children's center, a multi-purpose building, a basketball half court, and raised topography with a concrete wall alongside the west end of the property. Parking has been altered as well to make better use of the space closer to the building. The idea for this area is to have plenty of space for the church members to gather after services, picnics, or weekly conferences. Added benches, flower gardens, and rain gardens enhance the feeling of place in this area as well. Fenced outdoor space provide activities for both the children's care service as well as for Sunday school. Facilities include a play structure, various level changes in topography, and a sand pit. The raised topography and cement wall help limit road noise from the adjacent freeway and work in conjunction with vegetation to help create a mental barrier from the freeway for those in the church property as well. Whereas the multi-purpose building is geared primarily for adult age activities such as small group gatherings, office spaces, and even exercise machinery. Adjacent to this building sits the half court, and several large corridors provide ample outdoor space for church gatherings. The park is a community use space for senior residents, the church, and other neighbors from the surrounding area. Its clearings provide various multi-use spaces and is ambiguous enough for future modification. Through use of hide and reveal, the space feels larger than it really is from within the site, but is revelatory for those on the streets. Water retention basins line its east side, marking the separation between it and the neighborhood area. 4 grassy swales, ultimately meeting with a water garden, make use of heavy rainfall. During these times, water collects and slowly releases into the water table. Pools also act as another barrier between the park and the community. These grassy swales provide permeability and microbic habitability necessary for water purification as it slowly drains. They are able to tolerate increased 25-year water delivery into the area as much as 4 inches per hour. In the event of a 100-year storm, however, the soil will become too saturated and will drain via the drainage ditch along the freeway into the delta ponds to the north. Water-loving plants such as reeds, tall grasses, and small trees surround the water gardens, and stone cut from local mountain slopes build the edge of the raised foundation of the neighborhood. Garden-like vegetation from the park flow alongside the paths into the neighborhood from the park area, essentially blurring the boundaries between park and neighborhood. Lining the ridge of the outcrops, tall columnar forms of Oregon white oaks serve as quiet sentinels to mark the limits of the park. Their presence would be cathedral-like as they bring the expanse of the sky down to the earth and at the same time protect the inhabitants below from the elements. 3 corridors provide access to the neighborhood from the park. Each act as a drainage channels from the neighborhood to the water gardens as well as provide access into the neighborhood for people. The primary entrance into the residential community is a grand patio that overlooks the park. A multi-use building called a common house sits adjacent to the patio and serves the residents and their families for many community functions, which include parties, dinners, games, meetings, encouraging people to mingle in any weather condition. It is essentially located to be a comfortable walking distance from any home on the site and lies on axis with the largest of several meeting places that are within the neighborhood. The neighborhood provides meeting areas for groups of all sizes, whether they vary from large meetings to private conversations. All are accommodated for in a variety of settings. Most are open to the sky, but some are covered as well. Some spaces provide more privacy than others and may include a point of interest such as a garden, fountain, or other form of artistic expression. The diamond shape of the neighborhood provides a solid surface circuit of paths around the interior of the community. Seating is provided every 50 feet, and soft grassy edges gently encourage movement in a linear progression as residents continue walking outdoors, enjoying the sunshine. Vegetation is used to separate and limit the view through the corridor to suggest the place to be larger than it actually is. This helps cluster homes together in small quadrants, making each of their own unique style and character. Through the use of these quadrants, neighbors will break away from the trap of feeling too monotonous. The neighborhood will feel that way. Throughout the site, there are many examples of gradients between areas, and the homes are of no exception. A tightly knit community such as Welcome Home requires privacy, just as it does a community. So the homes are designed to encounter on the outside, but have seclusion as one ventures further inside. There are 3 styles of homes on the premises, providing for a variety of lifestyles of different people. The larger units would be especially beneficial for those who get married. Medium-sized lots would be convenient for those who expect frequent visitors. And smaller plots would be reserved for those who do not necessarily need an extra amount of space. Residents are free to customize their yards any way they choose. This maximizes the sense of ownership for those who live there, as well as provide a variety of colors and texture. Front porches encourage socialization with those walking by, or just allow folks to sit down and enjoy the sun. Every home has either an eastern or western face, so that throughout the day, the sun provides an adequate amount of sunshine for the front yard gardens. The parking lot is shaded by London plane trees on the warmer parts of the afternoon and can grow high enough to shade even the neighborhoods next door. The parking lot area is along the periphery of the site, keeping the movement of the vehicles away from pedestrians, which increase safety and allows the neighborhood to be more cohesive in its space. Current City of Eugene stormwater design requirements state that all development generating more than 1,000 square feet of impervious area is required to mitigate water qualities of impacts of stormwater. So, as the parking lot in the eastern half of the Welcome Home neighborhood make up more than 1 acre, 1,400 square feet of water garden retention areas provided for drainage and purification, as well as separate the parking area from the sidewalk. The purpose of the Welcome Home project is to provide community for older adults, 60 to 70 years old, who require the freedom it takes to take care of themselves and their own homes. By allowing residents the opportunities to get outside and meet their neighbors, community affection and solidarity can be encouraged. This is for those who otherwise live lonely and secluded lives. This project is not just designed for older adults, it is geared towards those of all ages that live within the Cal Young area. Through its use of child-oriented facilities, adult facilities, and park-like settings in the area immediate adjacent to older adult community, this church land would allow neighbors to mix and build a strong sense of community from now and well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Oops.
Great. Are there any questions from anyone else? Anybody just sign for reviews? Anybody?
When can I move in?
You're not old enough, okay.
Or poor enough.
Okay, Roxy, you want to start?
Sure. Nice project.
Thank you.
I always feel that I have a tendency to jump into criticism, so let me just practice by saying, very nice, very good. And I always think, what is it that we ask you to do in a comprehensive project? It's really develop a critical idea about a place, situate it within a larger context, and also develop it thoroughly in a sort of finer-grained professional way. I think you did all of that really successfully. I would have liked a little bit more about the sort of ecological context to this place and the relationship to Delta Ponds and that whole system, and how this might give a sense of place specific to that part of the Willamette River and where it is. And I think I really appreciated the consideration you gave to this place in terms of the water, which is not just how it functions and the kinds of places it makes, but also with terrific renderings of the rain, which is something that I'm always pushing people to do. Like, it's not, it is Oregon, it's not always sunny here. You can't draw it always sunny. So I really appreciated the perspectives of what this place would look like in the rain, as well as what it would look like in the sun, and how it functions there. So I think the consideration of water and rain and the water flow, and how that becomes a placemaking technique. Consideration of sun, and again, we saw earlier today these SketchUp models where you can do these solar studies, and thinking about the microclimate effect of sensible planting of trees to buffer parking, which is one of the worst causes of urban heat island effect. So I liked that, and sensible consideration of the topography and how that could be used to buffer the noise for the church, which I imagine is going to be quite grim against the highway. So those were all terrific. The spatial composition and consideration of the social factors, I thought that you might consider another pass on that. And the reason I say that is that I really liked at first your division into the church, the park, and the neighborhood. And then you described the park and I was like, yeah, I love the water gardens, I love how that's working, and the oaks and how that creates a sense of place. And I thought, that's just lawn, which wasn't really doing it for me in terms of the park. And then you got to the neighborhood, and here's this organization around a grand central open space. And I thought, well, why do you need a park and a grand central open space? Couldn't the two, in a way, be combined so that you get more neighborhood, more thoroughly integrated with more park? And there's been a lot of studies about the relationship, particularly between seniors and small children, and just the ability for seniors to watch small children playing, that if that central space became the community active space, and they still have their backyards, and so there's also this kind of redundancy of spaces between the central gathering space, the front yard, the backyard, the park. They still have their backyards to go and have quiet, private time in nature without being pestered by kids. But they could also go out to the front and watch kids riding their bikes and have that kind of passive social interaction, which is really good. So I thought that was a kind of funny tension between the central space and the park, and the two might actually share some program. And then I think also there's a tension between the residential and parking, and it's a perennial problem for designers, because most of us hate cars.
Right here? Yeah.
And yet, particularly if you're designing, and it makes a much nicer layout if you just say that people get out of the car over there. But particularly when you're designing for seniors, you know, it's rainy, they're carrying groceries. Most of them would prefer to have the convenience that most of us have, which is to be able to park right out front of our house. And so I always find it a bit of concern when we say, those of us who have choices get to park right out front of our house and walk, possibly even covered in a garage that's attached. But if you're poor, you have to park a couple minutes walk, or even if it's only a 45-second walk, you know, you don't get a choice. You have to park away from your house because it'll be nicer for this kind of social idea. So I would just consider that as well. I think that was it. But again, generally, I mean, those are kind of specific comments. Generally, I thought this was a really thoughtful project. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to mention, which I mentioned earlier with Amanda's project, was I really like the use of SketchUp for some of these site studies, for the solar studies, those kinds of things. I find it less compelling as a representation media. And so I would encourage you, as you move into your professional life and out of these halls, to really start to use SketchUp for those preliminary things. And I remember some of your earlier work and how interested you were in exploring this as a media, and it's come a long way. And so I'm here to be commended for that. But I do find SketchUp a bit clunky as a representational media. So I'd encourage you to work on branching out.
I will.
Nice
Thank you.
work.
Thank you.
Irene?
Yeah, well, I fully agree with Roxy, and I say very good presentation. I saw him several times in the studio, and it really evolved so much the project. So no, it's really complete and very clear, the whole presentation and the structure you gave to the site. I was just a little bit, and I was looking let's say when you start to show about the zoning of the area. It was an interesting approach, but I was looking a little bit in the next step of blurring the edges, as you said. And actually, I didn't really see this blurring. They're really clear, continue until the end. Sometimes the fence, even in a certain perspective, red fences, and you talk about blurring the edge. So yeah, be careful. That's if you're really blurring, not blurring. The relationship between the activity of the church, I expect a little bit more. They have more connection with also the elderly people. You talk about the children, and they are just a separate zone. They are only to the church. So this, I think, was also initial part of your interest to combine. The elderly could go to or receive some children and take care of them. So I think this is a little bit lost as one function is there and then happening only now and then. And the mother structure of the water system was very interesting, and it just appeared on a few slides. So it's really there been much more, getting a strong binding to the entire, maybe also blurring the edges more clearly and more effective, I think. In terms of graphic, I mean, I've seen you're mastering all the technique. But I would say just don't abuse some knowledge of them. I would sometimes some black and white drawings are very helpful, giving sense also dimension, reporting clear, the idea of the project, and I appreciate it with a lot of collage clearly showing this sequence. But good balance of different media is also very helpful in choosing the right media for the right message. And maybe just a little bit more what's the initial part regarding the sound of protecting the area from the sound of the highway. It was a little bit just a berm and a wall that could have been even more interesting as a landscape design part of this section of your zone 1 or say church zone, more involving. But overall, definitely, it's a complete project. I think in a verbal way you presented, and in a graphic way, it was very rich, complete.
Thank you. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, sure.
Did I get the word?
Yeah.
I'm thinking gradient. I'm thinking relationship or something. Relationship with gradients. I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I just want to say, yeah, very compelling sort of projects, and it's kind of nice to see you comfortable. Now, finally, you found the project that really allowed you to express all the things that you're about. You're a lot about kind of using computers and technology to sort of to model things, to understand how they come together, and you're about kind of I've seen you're interested in kind of infrastructure and sort of laying out things that are sort of that work together. So I actually see that, and it's nice to see that part of you kind of come together in this comprehensive project. So I really enjoyed it. I do think that there's a jump and a leap that you're making from the analysis, which was extensive, and actually, it gave us all the information we needed. But then I was missing a little bit of a diagrammatic process. So it was a series of small diagrams that would show why we ended up with this kind of tripartite sort of structure of church, middle ground, and then neighborhood. It would have been interesting to see maybe a range of diagrams, and then how you came to the to this solution. In terms of like most successful pieces, to me, actually they're all very successful. But the two pieces, the neighborhood piece and the church, are sort of the most successful to me. In just like particularly the church, you sort of addressed, you addressed, you told us what the issues were. You addressed them in a way that I think it's very convincing, and I could see that sort of site plan, being implemented fairly, quickly and without, just with a little bit more, implementation. And then the neighborhood is also very interesting to me. It's not. It reminds me a little bit of these Garden City, the Garden City approach, these kind of pockets, the Clarence Stein approach. So that's where I think, what Roxy was saying, I think a good way to sort of get at what Roxy was saying, but also achieve, the kind of economics that you were trying to achieve by putting the parking all on one side, could have been to create carports. That's what Stein did. He created these kind of little pockets where, they become pockets of infrastructure, the mailboxes, the carports, and it becomes like a little social hub for the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe using that could have been an interesting way to sort of approaching the parking need, as well as the community need, the need to create a community. So, not parking in the street, but maybe that. And okay, what was I saying? I thought the middle piece was the little one, the one that was less resolved, but that had a lot of potential as sort of the seam between the two sides of the two sort of moments in somebody's life. And I feel like it has the opportunity. And I think you mentioned something about leaving it ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's interesting. I would prefer that that there would be some kind of framework established. As a designer, you don't want to leave things for the next designer to come in and do something different. You kind of want to establish the framework. And I think you started to do it when you put the the sort of the water, stormwater system. That will impact, and probably, it will actually sort of affect the work of the designer that's going to come after you, that's going to design this piece. But maybe there's a little bit more pathways. See, there's maybe there's some axial sort of things that happen there. Even in the plantings, you talked about a cathedral. I would like to see actually maybe that cathedral be a grid of some sort, a bosque of sort. And that also could have been kind of a threshold between one side and the other. But overall, this is really great. Those images remind me of California living, actually. So, the it looks like Carmel on a very nice day, which is not bad. I'm all about bringing California here to.
Got the sundress on, and
I'm all about that. But so I think they're actually very compelling, and I do agree that they're a little sometimes they're a little too realistic, I guess, in a way, but without being But that's the nature of it. But you really mastered this technology. Honestly, I haven't seen in a long time representations using just this 3D technology that look. actually they look very convincing and sort of actually they give a sense of this coming home. So I think you achieved it. Last thing is you talked about this future development and potential future development. It would have been nice to have a phasing, but also a future development sort of scheme that would say how would somebody else link into it. We talked about it. I think it kind of fell, and maybe you didn't see the note, or you had a choice of time might be the issue also.
I felt it wasn't necessary.
Okay.
Yeah. I was wrong.
No, I feel like because you're saying this is part of, you're showing us that there's going to be more development coming in. It kind of wants a diagram. So diagrams is what I think you should work on in the future. So to develop smaller size, because you're obviously comfortable at that scale, and you did a really good job with the analysis. The missing piece is kind of this leap, this transition from the large to sort of the implementation. But very good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much. This has been a real treat for me to kind of work with Mike and watch this kind of grow and change and kind of see all the evolution of his design. And I think especially that middle section went through a number of different configurations and ways to think about it. One of the issues that I don't think Mike mentioned was that the people living in the neighborhood are not necessarily connected with the church. So part of the idea there was that in fact they were very, very separate and they weren't really necessarily tied to it, but that it was a way for the church to provide a service and an opportunity for the larger Eugene community that's really necessary. I think that was kind of one of the challenges that this project has done, but I certainly agree with all the comments. So Mike, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We will pick up again at 1 o'clock. Thank you all.
Should I blanket, Jane? Denny? Or just turn it off?
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Very much
Nice to
appreciate
see
it.
that you come to this.
Thank you.
This point.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I really appreciate all your help. You too, Denny. I appreciate all those comments. What you said about not leaving it ambiguous, that especially nailed it. I was like, yeah, that's right. What am I doing,
No,
it was actually a suggestion that I had all these plans set up, and this was going to be an open area, and this was going to be kind of a vegetable garden. So I was like, you know what, just let it be. And a lot of people were like, yeah, I like that. Just let it be its own thing. And I didn't put a lot of energy into it,
small
honestly.
diagrams that show the garden, this
Yeah.
park as a setting for photographs. This park as a community garden. This
Yeah.
park as just like little
Little things like that. Yeah.
Well, other than that, I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I should have put that future thing in. I didn't because I ran out of time.
Years ago, and like the evolution, it's all here.
I learned SketchUp in your class, and then I just went to town with it. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, he's done a good job. Really.
Thank you very much. All right.
Well, it's over.
It's over. Nothing's changed. It's all the same. Everything feels normal. So what do you think? Honestly, what do you think? I mean, you don't, besides it being, the way it looks, I mean, what do you think of the plan? What would you have changed on it?
I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking it like you've lived, slept it, ate it for, about a year now. But, I like the concept.
Yeah.
We're in the people business.
Yeah.
That part of it. Since I'm one of those senior citizens,
Yeah.
look at more ways to, and as the baby boomers, there's going to be a huge amount of us. We're going to be needing stuff like this. So.
Yeah. Would you have liked to have seen something added to it, perhaps? Something else also I didn't think of?
I'll send you an email as soon as okay, and then let me know.
The only thing I thought of, I was thinking, the community now uses it for a dog park.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of elderly people have so rather than just this whole thing be a dog park,
Yeah.
because I'm telling you, the neighborhood people will.
I forgot to talk about the baggies. Oh, jeez. I had
The
doggy
neighborhood
baggies,
people
yeah.
will still use, if you do something like this, they'll still be wandering
Yeah, they sure will.
out here
Yeah, I admit that's true, yeah.
dogs, and little bag stations, you know, to remind them, you know.
Cameras with lasers on them too.
Yeah, you know.
Keep those dogs away.
Or we could even put just a small fenced area.
Oh, yeah,
that is
yeah.
A dog walk park for the.
And that would fit in also with what
Yeah.
my teacher was
You know, we
saying
have
too.
Enough room, we could have done that.
Yeah.
And, you know.
That room is left open for your, you know, whatever you want to do. You
Yeah.
can put a garden here, you can put a dog park.
What if the church expands?
What if the church expands? You have room for expansion into the bioswales.
Or part-
Right.
Cool.
You know, this
Thank you
is
very
fine.
much.
For us on the church side
Yeah.
of it, this would be the area we'd expand to, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
That I've measured this, there's enough ground here, we could build a whole nother building, we could duplicate this whole square footage just
Yeah.
on this.
It actually,
It's 219 feet to short distance and 110, well, about 160 feet to the, but there's a lot of area there, you know, if we didn't do anything.
yeah. When I realized, actually it was Denny, the last guy I was talking, when he suggested cut this off and make this a park-like area, I was like, oh, and then I could fill this in with stuff and put a, oh my goodness, it was totally, can we get a picture together?
Sure.
All right.
Is a brother?
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Appreciate it.
Are you a brother?
My brother-
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
In the Lord?
He's an elder of the
with
church.
so-
Yeah.
Good.
I approached him in September, and actually him and a number of guys who were working on a sidewalk, and he had all these
Hey,
ideas.
can I use this for a project? Go for it.
We've been
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's like the city when they built the bike bridge, that actually had 2 neighborhood planning. Well, we were just started this, and we were right here in this area, we was digging out for a bioswale.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And the
yeah.
guy on the excavator says, Ken, I heard something about a bridge coming
Bridge coming
across right
across.
here. And I said, no, the city would have told us, you know, they haven't said nothing. We got our plans submitted, and they would have said something. So the next day I said, you know what, I'm gonna go check. So I went down to the city. I said, you guys even dreaming or thinking about a bridge coming on our property? Yeah, it's already funded, and it's getting started this summer.
Oh my.
Is that how it worked out? I was wondering what happened to the
We're
bioswale.
asking even for a bioswale right where it's gonna go. They said, oh, that won't work. So they held up the construction for a while because they had to redesign it, put in a pollution control manhole and.
I see. Okay, I was going through it. I remember talking to you about it, but I didn't get a good grasp
Well,
of it.
right where the bridge was gonna go. But they said, yeah, we've actually had 2 neighborhood planning meetings.
Thank you.
How do you turn it off?
Oh,
I said,
button
2
it.
neighborhood planning meetings is coming onto our property and you didn't notify us? We didn't think you guys had wanted. You know, so they were gonna cover everything else and then
And it's
us
surprising.
last. And so we said, well, no, actually, we're in the people business. So, you know, you're
Yep.
gonna. it's
You
I
gonna
should have
be
used that in the
bridge.
presentation,
Bring
actually. I
them
should have
in
used
by
that.
bicycle.
Yeah. So now,
Thank
when are
you.
you gonna
Proud of
work?
you.
When do I go to work?
Yeah.
I go to work going next semester, going to school, doing more classes.
More classes.
But not like this. These are the hard classes. I'm done with the hard classes now. I'm
So-
done with the hard classes.